So every one of these tanks you see has its own filtration system, its own lighting timers, and heater chiller pumps to maintain the temperature. So basically what we do in these systems is we give these fish an artificial year in about 150 days.
All right, say that again.
We give these fish an artificial year in 150 days. So we brought in, we have about 5 fish in each tank, 5 or 6 fish in each tank.
Okay.
And I brought in 12 more fish to kind of rotate them through. We have some older fish in here that aren't producing like we want them to.
Got to get them some new meat in there.
Tank mates.
Yeah.
And you also, since we're releasing these fish, you know, rotating about, we have 3 brood tanks, and rotating about 1 tank's worth of fish out every year is our goal to maintain genetic diversity. So, you know, if we have the same fish for 10 years in here, all we're doing is releasing brothers and sisters in the water every single year. And even year to year, we mix the tanks up. So we do different crosses. You know, we move a male from this tank to that tank and a female from here to there, just to kind of make sure we're not getting the exact same process year in and year.
Okay, and how do you have them tagged or anything? Yeah,
they're pig tags, like your dog would have when they put a microchip in them. So we actually have we microchip them, and when we take them out of the water, we can scan them and go, oh, this is a female number 39704. It weighed this much last time. It was this long last time. I know how much we have a running log.
Okay, but you have to actually capture the fish in order to get that. Or can you catch it as they swim by, scan them?
You gotta net them.
You gotta put your hands on them.
You gotta handle them.
All right.
Not too happy about it. So these are our pompano, and he just might kill himself. But these fish are probably about 7 months old. I want to say. I'm trying to think of when these came in. So
as in age from the time they hatched
to right now. They're about 7 months old.
7 months old. Now, of course, they look a little bit larger in the water, but how big are those fish?
I'm going to tell you, they're about 300 grams.
300 grams.
Which, multiply that by 2.2 would give you that 0.3 kilos by 2.2. So that's 3/4 of a pound.
Okay.
Something like that. So we can actually get, if we want to, which we do, we make these fish spawn twice a year instead of just once in the fall when they naturally do. So we make them spawn in the spring and in the fall.
Okay.
So what you do is you basically take a condensed year. So you look at your area's light patterns. So in the wintertime you have shorter day lengths and colder temperatures. So that's all paired up. I pair the average day length with the average temperature to create this year of, longer light, higher temperatures, shorter light, lower temperatures, and they go through that cycle in about 150 days, and they will actually mature and have right gonad and be able to spawn twice a year.
Do you just assume that they all get something to eat? Just start seeing her belly draw in.
Now there are times in the other tanks where we kind of have to strategically feed because there's some big old females that will kind of fight other fish off the food. So
yeah.
Kind of throw it all in at once to give everybody a chance, but there's enough fish in here. They haven't really established a hierarchy yet.
Look, they're still hungry.
Oh yeah, they'll get fed again, same thing this afternoon.
All right. Let's see what we can get them to do. Time to feed the pompano. What's the water temperature in here?
These guys, they're 17 or 18 degrees Celsius right now. I think I might move them up to 19 yesterday. They're coming up. Once they get up to around 22, 23, 24, they'll really start feeding. The smaller guys over there, we have them at 24. They tear it up.
And so what?
Set out right here. That's how I've got the cut set out right here.
Yeah. And how are you regulating the water? Each one of them has their own heating and cooler. Okay.
God, they're so fast.
Yeah, these guys are really fast. Look at that one, man. He's crazy. I don't know if he's gonna survive. Either that or he'll be the only one to survive if as crazy as he is. God.
So these guys haven't quite acclimated to the tanks yet. The other ones don't really spook as bad when you open the window. They almost won't even eat the food while if it gets close to the window. We got to throw it to the back of the tank so they'll actually get to it. See, they're going to be afraid of us for a minute here.
Yeah, they're not really digging this coming to the glass thing.
Which is kind of cool, like, you know, when we went out fishing for them, watching them take it is exactly how it feels when you're out there fishing. It's just like nothing.
Sand fleas?
Sand fleas and, you know, shrimp. Just frozen shrimp works okay. Sand fleas are better, and we never got to try it, but ghost shrimp, those work apparently really well. We were out there getting blanked one day, and some guy next to us had ghost shrimp, and he limited out in about 45 minutes. 4 members of his family sitting there, like 12 fish in a bucket, and we're like, hey, can we all want to keep fishing and hand some over to us? Like, no, we're good for the day, thanks.
Oh, man.
And hand over some bait if you wouldn't mind. So, that's our little rootstock systems.
This is really cool. Thank you.
It's not that heavy to use right now. Auburn does some shrimp research in the summertime. They do nutrition. The professor that does a lot of projects down here is a nutrition professor. So there's some analytic capabilities here for them to carry out some research if need be. But it's just chemicals and instruments and washer, dryer, glassware, and that. Too exciting.
Nothing exciting there.
Yeah. And then this is our food prep room. We have a walk-in cooler and a walk-in freezer. A little bit more lab space and capabilities. Not too exciting in there. Just a lot of dead fish in the freezer. This is our incubation room. Once we get eggs, we move them into these systems. And they're pretty simple. They're just hooked up right now with the same filter and they flow through. Like I said, if the water ever gets fouled, we just dump it, put new water in. But the way these work is like that. So the water has to come up through the tank and back down through that standpipe.
Okay.
So we put this guard on it so it keeps the eggs and any hatched out fish from getting through. So the water comes up and flows through and we retain the fish in the tank. We put these down in the holes like that, fill it up, and we turn the air on so it gets a gentle rolling motion, like a cyclic pattern.
Okay.
So it keeps the eggs from getting stuck up against the screen. So basically when you have eggs in there, it just comes in and you look down and it's an evenly distributed mass of eggs. And about 36 hours after fertilization, they hatch out.
36 hours.
Yep, 24, 36
and
hours.
That's the same with the flounder, pompano,
For the most, flounder, I'm not as well versed on flounder culture because I haven't had the opportunity to do it yet.
Okay.
But marine fish typically have very similar patterns. You know,
okay.
Whether it's a couple days different, like channel catfish. Once I don't remember the exact hatch out time, but I know they stay like a yolk sac fry for 7 days, as where like a marine fish would stay that way for about 3 days. So once they hatch out, they're a very basic, unevolved animal at that point.
Yeah.
They're just a fish with a couple of eyes that can pick up a little bit of light, no mouth, and a yolk sac, just kind of like a chicken fetus, or like an egg. So as it develops that yolk and that nutrients, it will develop a mouth part. Once all that yolk's consumed and they have that mouth part, then they'll start feeding. And at that stage is usually about a day before they get to there, we'll move them from these systems into our fry room. and we have to spread them out because I raise fish. I stock these at about 1,000 eggs per liter. So one of these tanks holds about 70,000 fish.
70,000 fish. Look at that.
And we usually, you know, if the egg quality is right, we can get, you know, anywhere from an 80 to 100% hatch out from fertilization.
Hell, 80% is pretty solid.
Yep. On
those numbers.
Yep. Now it's after the hatch out was where it gets tricky. But so we usually have these guys all staged up, and they'll either go to the fry room, or after they have a mouth part, you can move them out to the ponds, and if you have them fertilized and a nice bloom on them, where they can start consuming the algae and the zooplankton in the water.
Okay.
So when we keep them inside, we actually have to culture all of that and provide it to the fish.
Okay. And how long do they last in that yolk sac stage?
About 3 days. We call it 3 days post-hatch.
So that's
about from fertilization, about 4 days.
And then how many hours once they develop that mouth part do they need food?
They need it immediately. So we typically stock food if we know that they'll be at that point overnight or at a period where we're not here. We'll go ahead and stock some live food at the tank for when they are ready. You don't want them to, you know, develop that mouth part at midnight and not have anybody here and feed them at 6 a.m. the next day.
They're dead.
Chance that they starved.
Wow.
So you have to.
So that's where the water quality stuff really comes into play on anything natural happening. Yeah.
Yep. Let them separate out. The good eggs will float, and the bad eggs sink. So we're able to separate off nasty, crappy eggs before we even have to incubate them. Because if you incubate those nasty eggs, it'll foul the whole tank up. And
I bet.
Cause the whole tank to crash. But you get a nice little layer of eggs in those tanks. And it usually about I'm second guessing myself right now. A milliliter of eggs equals about 1,000 eggs. So there's very, very tiny little eggs. Very small. So from there, we move into our fry room, which are just basically, they're recirculating systems with some filtration. We're adding additional biofiltration in here. But it's just bigger volumes because I have a cut in where I stock them in those tanks at about 1,000 per liter.
Yeah.
After they have mouths and you start feeding them, you have to bring that density down to about 25 per liter. So then I have to redistribute those all throughout these systems.
Okay.
So bigger volumes, typically I can get about 25,000 fish in these tanks, in the larger tanks. But that number will fall to. So you rear them, you put them in, you start them out on rotifers. It's a zooplankton, very easy to culture, very common in aquaculture. It's a first feed. You have to think about size of feed at that point. It has to be small enough for the fish to actually fit in its mouth.
Right.
Or else it can't eat it and they'll starve anyways. So we'll put them on that with a little bit of green water culture. We add a little algae so that the rotifers can feed on algae and stay alive, and the fish can eat the algae too. And after about 6 or 7 days, we'll start transitioning over to Artemia, which are brine shrimp or sea monkeys.
Yeah.
Those are usually harder hatched. We keep them in our refrigerator and we can hatch those out as needed.
Don't tell my son that you feed sea monkeys to the fish.
Oh, they tear them up too. And this whole time when we have live feed, we actually co-feed with a crumble diet. So eventually once they get off of they're big enough that Artemia are too small for them, that they're not providing enough nutrition, we wean them over to a completely crumbled artificial diet to finish growing them out. So to introduce them to that feed the whole way through, so they associate, oh, there's more rotifers and this other stuff. Now they're identifying all that as food. So as we do that all the way through, this feed gets a little bigger to match their size. So by the time we actually have to wean them off of that feed, they're ready. They're ready.
Okay.
So the biggest problem that we've run into so far has been cannibalism. So when you rear these fish in a closed system like this, red drum are highly cannibalistic. So when you have 25,000 fish in the same tank, if they're hungry, they're going to eat each other.
Yeah.
And they don't do that until they go through a metamorphosis, which is usually around 10 to 12 days post-hatch. And you can see it. They're little black, little squiggly lines in the tank. and all of a sudden you look down and they've doubled in size overnight almost, and they drop down to the bottom of the tank and you get this red kind of clear color. And then at that very critical stage, those first guys that go through metamorphosis, they now are the perfect size to eat everything else in the tank.
Oh, wow.
So we're still kind of working on an automated feeding system, lighting to get it in right to optimize our feeding, because there's some tank, you know, not every tank, but in tanks where you have a couple of athletes, you know, one fish can consume, you know, 250 fish in a day.
No way.
I mean, when they're that small and one fish is that big, he's just picking them off left and right, left and right.